Hello, welcome back to Blender Sushi Live Noding. In this episode, I'm going to try to recreate this animation. You might actually have seen it at some point. I think originally it was like one animation made by an artist using an app called Processing. It's also another open source app, and Processing is actually really good to generate this kind of animation. It's Processing does it using like a vector kind of vector math, and processing also is a language in itself, and you kind of program what you're writing. This is actually the Python conversion of that animation, and with Python it's probably much easier to read than the processing Java or JavaScript. But you see, this is the expression that creates this kind of animations. It draws the whole thing, and then but what's really uh, interesting from here is actually the actual animations. This is actually just drawing a circle, and the circle is actually doing like a circular motion, and each one of them has some kind of offset. If you look at the formula in Blender, but it's actually less about formula. I will use nodes and just like a couple of kind of not so much on mass. It's more like we focus on the motion. So I'll show you how we can do that using Sverchok in Blender. So first of all, I will close Safari and restart Blender. So what I want to say is like the actual animation and setup itself is actually quite simple. It's just like an offset, and it's actually just a rotating motion. There's a little bit of math, of course, but it shouldn't be that complicated to recreate. So this is circle motion with offset, and I'll go to Compositing and switch to Sverchok Node 3 right away. Go to the top view. I'm gonna save this, and I'll start with a circle because we know it's a circle. And viewer draw. Right away we can have like a circle. Because this thing actually generates a circle. And I'll reduce the circle so it's like a low circle, low polygon circle. The next thing we want to do is to create duplicates of this circle. And I can do that using line. So by default, if I plug this line into the matrix, I get this. So the line is kind of growing in the x-axis, like I said many times. We want it to grow like upward in the z-axis, so I'll switch to z-axis here. And now we have multiple circles. We're actually kind of getting there already. We don't need to see the points. At this time, we can actually increase the number of points for the circle, so it's a little bit smoother. We can increase it anytime. So we can reduce the stepping. Look at from the top. Okay, so it's like a stack circle, and I know the fact that we can kind of animate the circles individually using this line. Let me think. I think vector math might actually do this. So vector math, and with this line points goes into the add, we can use vector in here and then kind of move it in the x-axis and the y-axis to generate like a circular motion. We don't need to do anything in the z-axis. So from the original position, that's like a stacked circle. Now we can use frame number and math. Sine wave actually can do the job. See, It's already doing it. If I use some math here and then multiply this by 0.1, you can see this guy's doing that kind of motion. And if we plug in some kind of offset here with a range float, make it a count of 10 between, I don't know what values, but just plug this in, we should start to see some kind of interesting motion. So we're gonna offset it, but not too much. So now you start to see this kind of a sine wave motion. We know that in order to make like a circular motion, we need the sine and cosine. So if we do it like this, we should get like a circular motion. And this is actually what we need to recreate that artwork. Really, there's nothing more to it. Except that of course we need to make some adjustments, so maybe with the size of this circle. Let me think. Oh yeah, by the way, currently we have this like a many nodes to do this. There's actually like a new math MK2 here. This is a new node, much cleaner, and this have a lot of more function. There's one handy one. This is sine and cosine. So instead of using two nodes, you just plug in this one into this, and you should get the sine and cosine output. So it's much cleaner, see? So let me explain again what we have so far. We are using the frame number, see, frame number multiplied by 0.1. So this controls the speed of the animation. So, and then we have this offset. This offset is the important one. By having like a multiple value with this addition, we are creating multiple data coming through into our function, sine, cos, and this one is doing the circle motion. This goes into the line, it's kind of deforming the line, and we are using the points of the line to duplicate the circle. So that's really what's going on. Pretty simple. And I guess the next thing to do, if you want to kind of adjust the scaling of the circle, we can do that very easily. Here we have like location, point location goes into the matrix, but in reality we can use matrix in, have more control. For example, for the scaling here, this is how we control the scaling of each object here. The circle itself is still, we don't do anything to the circle, just leave it like that. So this, we can still control the size of the circle, like for all of them. This guy we can modify. For example, if we use like range float with a count between, I don't know, we play around with this number, just plug this into this guy and let it rotate. Okay, so apparently we need to do it different, yeah, like in the opposite way. It's more like this. So it's smaller at the top, larger at the bottom. So now we're starting to get that kind of a nice motion. We just need to make some adjustment with the offset here. So there you go. That's actually the animations. What's missing here is probably just the coloration. So with that animation we saw earlier, it's like white, black. It's kind of that kind of pattern. Also, the number of the circle here. Currently we have 10. See, there's 10, 10. And here also 10. Those value we need to just plug one node. This number will control all this the number of circles duplications. So this is always very important with a node-based procedural creation. At the very end you clean it up and you kind of control some of the parameters that you want to give to user. So yeah, there you go. That's the motion. Actually, this one is pretty much done. The rest of them is pretty much like decorations, making it a little bit prettier. You can of course do all kind of modification and make it more sophisticated, but I think that's totally up to you. For now, let's make it a little bit like colorful. Currently, this is just like a viewer. If I bake this, you're gonna get the objects, the actual objects. And this guy is made up of multiple objects, you can see here. We don't want to just have the viewer draw, so we use viewer bmesh and simply just plugging in the circle and the matrix transformation into this guy, we should have our animations. And the next thing to do, if actually for this thing, we need some kind of material that actually respect the object coloration. This is a quick way to do it. There are many ways to colorize an object. This is one way that I like to do. Like this one is very simple. You just give it like an object color and the material respect the object color. If you are using Blender cycles, you need to probably use vertex coloring or all kind of other methods. But I think this is pretty good for demonstration. So I want to give the same material for all of the objects, so I will do that real quick. And like I said, I need to change the object color individually for each and every circle. So that's pretty easy. Just use object ID set, plug in all our objects. So see, we can see like 20 circle object being generated on the fly. Change the color, plug in the color in nodes. Here this thing works with RGB, HSV or HSL. We need to use alpha because the color value here for object color is actually RGBA. You can see RGBA is expecting 4 value, so color in works really well. We need just to turn on the alpha and then plug this guy in. So you can work with this value HSV, like changing the hue, you get that rainbow color, or you can use the RGB. It's totally up to you what you want to use. You can like use random number. So I think this is another pretty good example to really just understand how the data you being piped in. You pass in a lot of data for multiple objects, and this is really how you start to think about procedural kind of thinking and setup. HSV. Sometimes I still a little bit confused as well with the setup, but this making it very clear. So I found this much simpler than just looking at formula. Of course, if you are like more advanced, you like to use formula and Python codes anyway. Like you like to program this because with the program you can make it everything becomes so concise, and it's no longer, sometimes it's no longer like readable, but with the nodes it's kind of visual and you can kind of see it. But I think with the nodes, if it's like over 50 or 100 nodes, it's starting to get complicated unless you really like organize everything. There's a lot of, either you are coding or noding. It's two different ways of working. For now, I prefer working like this. So okay, with the color we can control the saturations. I think for black and white we can use the value here, zero out the saturation, so we have this grayscale at the moment. We just want black and white, so black and white really is just using like a range float, and then you're using like a modulo. We are going to create modulations on the color like between 0 and 1. So this is how we do it. It's pretty simple. And now we can control our snake. So this control the number of the snake, you know. You can have as many as you want, as little as you want. But I think this needs to be like even number to have like a 0, 1 and 0, 1 value. Now we have some kind of weird coloration here, but I'll delete all and then refresh. I don't know, sometimes I get a... That's actually an anomaly. I don't know why this gives you that. Maybe I need to give like a floor value here. Ceiling or rounding. Maybe floor it. Well, yeah, I think that's kind of working. Okay, that's pretty good. So refresh everything. I get this really white, bright white value somehow. Anyway, that's not very important. So yeah, that's pretty much how you can generate these animations using Sverchok add-on in Blender. So Sverchok, again, Sverchok is a visual kind of programming. It's like a nodes-based visual programming for Blender. It's a very powerful add-on, and it's continuously being developed, and I really like to work this way sometimes. You can of course do this using different way. This is not like one way to do it, but if you understand the concepts, this is just like a circular motion, and we have a bit of offset. We can control the speed of the animations. Currently the animations is being controlled by the frame number, and we kind of modulate the color of the circle. And then yeah, it's a lot of things, but you have control over everything. And if you don't want a circle, if you want to use like other generator, you can do that as well, like anything, torus, icosphere, or whatever, maybe even like a torus. Torus, maybe circle, and there's a ring. Ring is actually pretty good. There you go, now it's a ring. Okay, so that's, I think, very, very powerful. Hopefully you find this useful. Thanks again for tuning in. If you have any feedback, suggestion, let me know in the comment section below. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks again.